Welcome to Herding Cats and Other Stories from the Genesis of the Neurodiversity Movement with hosts Oswin, Morenike, Kassiane and Renae.
Hi, everyone. We're Foundations for Divergent Minds. I'm Oswin Latimer. I'm the Executive Director of FDM.
I'm Morénike Giwa Onaiwu. I'm a board member. I do research and advocacy and all that jazz.
I'm Kassiane and I certainly have a title.
And I'm Renae Martin. I've managed to miss all the rest of these, and I believe my official title is Outreach Director.
I have superpowers, kind of, that may be translated, or that may be, kind of dragged back to autistic, but they are the worst superpowers. They're not really superpowers, okay?
Yeah.
It's just funny to say they are.
Can we also, while we're talking, can we jump into the people who also say if we were in a world designed by autistic people, we would not be disabled. And I'm like, no, honey, yes, we still would, because nobody would eat and the house would be a wreck. And
right?
that's not going to fix so the fluorescent lights would be gone, hallelujah, and 100% of things would be able to be done online. Great. But that is not going to mean anybody is going to be cooking and the bills are going to get paid. That does not help.
Yeah, all the utilities would be disconnected. Yeah.
Also, which autistic people? Because conflicting access needs. Hello.
That's
right?
true. Yeah.
That too, but I sit there every time I hear people going, "Well, social model of disability," and I'm like, "That's not what that means."
I am trying to understand what words they're reading and how they're reading it, because I'm like, that's not what we're saying. They're still
people are they're conflating the strong social model, as the social model instead of being a model, because
Right.
I think it's quite clear that we know that, it is a disability. You know what I mean? There are, there are advantages, there are disadvantages, there are strengths, there are weaknesses. That's just the way that it is, like any other disability. But I think that it's important to look at our environment, like we were talking about in the other podcasts, about the importance of universal design and, accessibility. All of those things are great, but that doesn't change that addresses some of an issue. It doesn't change the reality.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that I don't get dizzy no matter how hard I try is never going to be useful in any circumstance. And that is my so-called superpower.
I would love to be closer to your side of that so I could go on the spinny things, because they do look like fun, but then I get on them and then they're not fun.
I would just like to not get dizzy standing up.
Okay, so that's my big flex, is I don't get dizzy standing up, or doing anything else. We don't have superpowers. Also, that is when people want to call us differently abled, that is my different ability, is I don't get dizzy. Yes, I am differently abled, but also I am disabled, so just accept it and move on with your life, please.
Right, but if there's a flashy light within 300 yards, you're having a seizure. You're still disabled.
I'm still disabled. It's fine. It's not a dirty word. I know a lot of dirty words. Disabled is not one of them.
Right? It'd be nice if people would just acknowledge that.
I'm a connoisseur of dirty words, and disabled does not make the list.
It feels like we're having the same conversations that we had over a decade ago.
Yeah, we are. We actually are.
Literally, we are. Oh, hey, here's a semi-new one, but it's related to Aspie supremacy. ADHD. What?
Yes. Please go for a fuller there, because.
All right, so I'm gonna upset people maybe, and that's fine. I can live with that. ADHD is, for those if the three people listening who don't know, is the whole thing where people have ADHD and are autistic at the same time, which, okay, same. You know what? A lot of people have ADHD and are autistic at the same time. Except there's except for Oswin. And okay, At first, I actually was like, all right, a label for that neurotype is like fine, I guess. You do you. I'm not going to use it, but go off. But there's like a lot going on around it where people are acting like it's a very specific neurotype, and I am unconvinced that's a thing. And it is very much, and the discourse is very much overlapping with Aspie supremacy. And I dislike that. Like, I strongly dislike that. I am not getting in your tent. No. Even though I belong in your tent, maybe I'm not going camping with you. I'm going camping with other people. Like, I don't understand. I don't know, maybe I'm just old and don't understand, but I think a
No,
lot
it's
of it
not that
is
it's not. You're right. And so I think the problem is that people are so quick to want to I don't think we spend enough time looking at what has come before us in general, in anything, in social movements, in health, and whatever, in fashion, because I'm going to just be honest, because, my experience as someone who has ADHD and autism, my experience is that of the quote unquote ADHD. And so I kind of conflated a lot of the things that they're talking about. Well, yeah, of course, of course, of course. But then, it's interesting when I look at my son, who is the one autistic person in the house who does not have ADHD. There is a difference, but it's the overlap. It's kind of like we talk about
Mhm.
intersectionality. It doesn't mean we need to have a million different slivers of things. Like it's a spectrum. There's, you know what I mean? Like, and I feel like people
Mhm.
are, so things coexist. Like what they're doing is the autistic version, the flip side of the profound autism, where let's take everything that, let's take, a person who is, doesn't speak, maybe has higher support needs, a maybe primarily non-speaking or an AAC user, and or has intellectual disability, and or this, and or that, and let's make this as carve out this category. That's what they're doing. When these
Mhm.
things can exist together, these things can exist apart, they can exist with other like pieces there. And that's what I think that people aren't getting. And I think that it's a waste of time. And I'm sure it makes people feel better to understand or connect or whatever with other people. But where is it getting us as a community? Like, what's the practical application of it?
What I think about with it is that I think they're misunderstanding what neurotype means. I think they're
Mhm.
misunderstanding what neurotype means because everyone's neurotype is individual because it's not just
Mhm.
like your innate things, but like what you've experienced in your culture and your community and the
Mhm.
society you live in and all these things creates your neurotype, which is why some people have innate neurotypes that develop over time and that are divergent from the norm. And then there are other people that over time grow to have a different neurotype than the norm because of the experiences that they've had. So like acting like ADHD is a specific neurotype kind of misunderstands what a neurotype is altogether and doesn't really even tell you a whole lot about that person's support needs. It goes back to high and low functioning. It goes back to these delineations because people want to have a different way of having their things addressed than what doesn't work for any of us.
Mhm.
For me, I have been known to use the ADHD shorthand because for me it is really just an attempt to be a shorthand to not have to type
Mhm.
everything out. But I think a lot of people are misunderstanding. Like to me, it's like a Venn diagram that failed. That people are seeing the
Mhm.
autism and the ADHD and then the overlap, and they're only seeing that little middle section, and they're not seeing that the Venn diagram has lots of circles. And so
Exactly.
they're only
Yes.
seeing that tiny little sliver, and they're calling themselves that, and they're not seeing all of the overlapping pieces of the Venn diagram, and thinking that being in that little thing connects them to just who's in that, and they're missing all the rest of the important umbrella and circle.
That makes sense because because when it first came out, it just seemed like a really quick shorthand for the two. But then
Right.
over
Mhm.
time, what happened, I'm like, this is confusing to me because one, some of the things that are on the ADHD side that you're talking about, I know are an autistic thing. For me,
Mhm.
it's a presentation of a different synthesis
Yeah,
in
that
my
was
head.
one
And
of the things that was confusing.
and it's like I don't know why you're subdividing things this way and not like and I thought this was like a really big like, oh, now you can see you're part of this bigger whole and not this little sliver. So that makes a lot more sense. Thanks, Renee.
Right. Yeah, I think that they're just trying to see themselves in the Venn diagram, but we need to remind people, that and that yeah, like I know plenty of people who are also IDDD, who are also ADHD and autistic. Their Venn diagram is overlapping, and you need to remember that they count just as much for the. It's not just the people that you want to put in there. Everybody who falls into ADHD
Exactly.
fits, or
Exactly.
the label is meaningless. Like you can't do that.
Oh, just like neurodivergent.
Well,
Right.
That might actually be part of my problem.
I was just gonna ask if Renee can talk to that because she wasn't here for the other ones, and this is a different perspective that I think is important. This is why I like having our token white.
Yes. Yes.
But is that why neurodivergent have become what it has become? Is because they're trying to fit the Venn diagrams that they see into neurodivergent and not everything else?
I think it's possibly a combination of that. And I think it's also okay, problematic white person moment for a second here. Since the vast majority of diagnosed and now grown up people were white, we have a tendency as white people to need to be special for something. And so we're a lot of times appropriate labels that might not have been what they were intended to be and then make them smaller so that we can be a little bit more special than we naturally are. Oh my God.
That's a
But
very
I'm just gonna
I
say
mean,
it.
yeah, I mean, but I love how you did that because it's like you're saying it in a way that's just, like very
You're
matter of fact.
allowed
It's
to
not
say
about
that.
yeah, but I mean, but I think, but also it's such an autistic way to say it because it's kind of like, look, hey, I'm going to explain what I think the rationale behind it is. It's, because people get in their feces, they get all emotional, get upset. And it's kind of like,
Right.
yeah, and you're just explaining it's not what's a qualifier. It's just, this is what people are trying to do. It's like small talk. Like I explained to my daughter when she just picks up the phone and I'm like, hey, people, you need to say hi or hello or something like that. She's like, but why? They called
Right.
me. And so I'm answering, so they know I'm there. I was like, I know that's the case, but if you don't acknowledge them in some kind of way, they think it's rude. So even though they called you, and you
Right.
answered, which is what they wanted, they expect some kind of vocalization. So,
Right.
that's the purpose of it. And so this is the reason, whatever the thing is, it's the reason is trying to find connection, understanding, naming things. It's about people will go to a land that has a name and name it whatever they want to name it, or they'll write an
Right.
executive order naming something that's already named.
Oh
It's
my
kind of like that
gosh.
whole,
Right.
phenomenon.
Right. Exactly. And as the world feels like it's getting, browner, clearer, blacker, more diversified, I can see people that are voting against their own best interests doing what it takes to make themselves still feel special. And it's going to take decolonizing your own brain to realize that maybe you shouldn't be doing that when you've had a brown queer person tell you that that is not what that means.
I just feel like maybe I need to just start doing that. I need to do a video of that in like December or
There you go.
January when I haven't seen this January when I haven't seen the sun in like months and
There
get
you go.
past. Those of you who are listening who are unaware, number one, I think I'm funny. Number two, I am biracial Asian and I get past as white approximately 4 months out of the year. And the other 8 people aren't quite sure. So January is the month.
There you go.
What I was thinking about was okay, so this also then explains why neurodiversity affirming therapy changed into what it has become instead of what Joel intended it to be.
Mm,
Because
very likely.
he was saying he intended it to be a trauma informed perspective, similar to how queer therapy is done, recognizing the trauma that occurs. But it has now been co opted by other parts of therapy practices. And so they're still trying to do the same normative stuff, but in a more affirming, strengths based way that kind of tells people that your strengths are enough to hold you for the rest of your life, which is not true.
That's a combination of not true and completely useless.
Because like we break down, that's just gonna happen when you live in a world that expects something different of your brain and body than it's capable of.
Okay, how is strengths based not secretly, like, not sneakily pathology?
Deficit.
Right? Yeah,
I mean,
deficit.
this
That's
has
what I'm
been my
looking for.
argument. In order for it to be a strength, you have to be pathologizing something that you're ignoring.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, you're saying it's like a compliment sandwich.
The compliment sandwiches are so confusing because there's all
I
of
hate them
this
too.
information that I thought was just like, okay, you're giving me perspective.
Did you like it or not? Did you like it or not? Help me out.
I don't know. And if you didn't like it, then I need you to tell me what you didn't like about it so I can explain to you, oh, you're wrong because because usually when people are doing that, it's because they're trying to put white centric social norms onto me. And I'm like, no, we're not doing that right now. Because usually if I'm in the room and you're asking for somebody that's disrupting the room that you're in, I don't end up in rooms by mistake. Like who invites me in just because I like play the part? Have I ever done that?
Oh my gosh. Sorry, now we're talking about compliment sandwiches.
Yeah.
That's my bad.
Like compliment sandwiches always come when somebody is trying to get you to change your social norms.
They're like so manipulative.
They are.
What? They
And I feel,
absolutely are.
and like I feel like strengths based is also a pathology paradigm, and it's in a similar way. Like, okay, so this was good, but you still need to fix this and make it more like this. And I like your hair.
And honestly,
Okay.
I think like strength based for like art therapy, art talk therapy, or play therapy, or or anything that's going to be somatic. The strength based can be really good to help people like get past like some really ingrained self beliefs.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I'm not saying it's necessarily bad. I'm just saying that it is not coming from
It's still
it's.
pathologizing. It's just trying to help people see outside of just the negative pathology. They can see the positive
Yeah.
pathology and like, okay. And now that we've gotten there, what's the next step? Because now we got to get away from the pathology.
Well, it almost makes me think that there needs to be like an Alfie Cohen of autism type book read, where he's like, you can't praise your kids and you can't decline or denigrate. You gotta, you love them no matter what, because if you're overly praising your kids, if you're overly rewarding your kids, then then people come to expect that, and if they don't get it, then they think they failed, right? That's how strength-based feels too. So maybe we just need the neutral,
I like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, like that.
Because you're
We
looking
are.
at the the intention, it's like the intention versus impact thing,
You
and like
mean
also that
like
needs to
the
be sustainable.
framework? You mean like our
Yeah.
framework?
That's
Yeah.
exactly
Right.
like our framework.
Right. It
Oh,
just is.
which one? I don't think we've talked about it all in the
Yeah.
in this podcast. Yeah.
Oh, well, do we get to pivot to that? That's awesome.
Yes. Let's go ahead and do
Are we
that.
actually going to talk about what we're here for? It's a stunning
And we didn't even plan that. That was like
plot
natural.
twist.
Like,
That's
wow.
awesome. That's awesome. So I think that a lot of people think that the framework is meant to just be for like therapy, but it's not. It's just to help people recognize like what our innate traits are and then what we might need help with based off of the environment that we're in. And since all places that we are an environment, it changes no matter what. Like it's always changing. So we have to have like this map of like what your brain is doing to be able to respond to the environment. And so that's what the framework does. It subdivides it. It subdivides it first into sensory integration and then into executive functioning. And then from those two, we get into the cognitive processes, which are motor skills and like communication skills and social skills. And I mean social skills in the literal sense and not the pejorative sense. And then emotional regulation. And because all of those layer in together, we get like a map to be able to help people navigate whatever environment they're in based off of how their sensory system works and how their executive functioning system works.
Love it. And recognizing that it's different, like every environment, you can't build one map.
No.
Just like you can't have a map of your house and expect it to work in Walmart. That is not going to work.
So you have to build it up for each environment. So that's going to be different for school or home or going to the store or participating in sports or going to art, and doing art or whatever it is. That each environment is going to be so completely different because what you're there for is different and what that environment looks like is different and how your body responds to that environment is going to be different because all those things change.
I think that we're really unique in that we acknowledge sensory and motor very early in like the process. Because like people will now get, people will acknowledge sensory issues and they will acknowledge like motor planning issues. But then when it comes to actually addressing things, people forget that they acknowledged it seems.
Well,
If that makes sense.
I
Yes,
think it does. And I think the reason for that is that a lot of people think that sensory processing concerns are only when the big events happen or it shocks your system instead of realizing, no, they're always happening. And then that impacts the integration because if you get a lot of your body in space, not me, but most people, then you may need a lot of movement to be able to keep regulating, and that's going to be a constant thing, but it may only come out in the moments where it bursts out and you need to run out the door because everything is overstimulating because something else is also going on at the same time. And these things are always going on. And so if you're not supporting them always, then the integration of them is also really heavy for your brain because because it's getting too much of something to not enough of enough other things. And so the integration, your brain is having to do that in real time. And it's like how your brain isn't going to be able to do that constantly in real time. So you have to think about it always as the baseline because every environment is sensory.
I can listen to and do, 2 hours of recording in my hobbit hole of an apartment with my weighted blanket that I could not possibly do anywhere that I did not control the lights.
absolutely. I was going to say, and this is one of the things that parents need to think about when they're like, I remember when one of my kids was younger, we discovered that the I can't for finding and putting on shoes, as silly as this sounds, was connected to whether or not I bought a shirt that had a tag attached to it or the stamped tags. And once I got rid of all the tags in the shirts, suddenly we could handle shoes in the day, but anything that had a tag made it so that that extra step was just one step. It was just enough to throw the whole.
That makes sense.
It does,
It makes
but
complete
it took a
sense.
little. But it threw. It does, but it threw the whole day until we figured it out.
It's like fork theory.
Right, for sure.
Oh, can you explain fork theory? Because I think most people know spoon theory, but fork theory is awesome
Yeah.
for us.
Okay. So, spoon theory, which is you only have so many spoons, so much energy in a day. But have you heard of fork theory where there's only so many inconvenient or uncomfortable things you can handle in a day at a time? So you need to, at some points, you need to remove a fork or just kind of dump all your everything over the floor. So, for example, it's a day. You are uncomfortable. You're sitting in a chair that's not very nice. You need to pee. You're hungry. The lights are too bright and you can hear traffic. Okay. There's too many things going on. They are discomfortable. Discomfortable is, in fact, the word I mean. You can fix one of those things and maybe get back to regular. So, like, my go to is always, oh, too many things are going on. I'm going to go pee because that's usually easier to fix than being hungry. and I often don't have the spoons to fix being hungry until I am not so uncomfortable that I'm going to, melt down if anything goes wrong. But yeah, I love fork theory. I also love spline theory. Are we familiar with
that?
spline theory?
I am
No, what's
not.
that
I
one?
remember spline. I am. You shared that with me ages ago, and I
Spline
loved it.
theory is my favorite, actually, because, okay, for those of us who cannot change plans in the middle after we set up to do spline theory, basically, I don't even know where the person got reticulating splines from. I think it's from the loading page of a video game. But,
It is.
okay.
Yes.
Okay. You get all set up to do a thing. You're all ready to do your tasks for the day, right? You have mentally set up the scaffolding. You maybe haven't even had to do any of the physical scaffolding. And then somebody says, hey, I know we were going to go to the store, but can we go get lunch first? And everything crashes down internally because you have to change everything. That is the feeling of having to re-reticulate your splines.
Oh, I love that one. That one is so perfect because it happens so often. Like, this is why
Yes.
I have this thing where when I've got two very good friends that I go and hang out pretty often with, and they're both ADHD. And so when I go into their space, my rule is I am not planning on anything. I am going to go with what you direct. And so whatever happens, happens.
I have a personal rule where if you change something on me last minute, I cannot solve the problem. You changed it on me, then you have to figure out what we're doing instead. You have to figure out every aspect of what we're doing instead because I can't. You tore down my
I like that.
splines. I can't build them back up in the amount of time we have. You are now the spline holder.
Yep. Yep.
There's also. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I do the same thing. I don't say it that way, but like, no, it's like, I can't make any more decisions today.
Yeah. I started saying it that way because people were choosing to not understand that it wasn't a won't, it's a can't. So, like, no, you're the spline holder now. You brought this upon yourself.
There's another one that I always love that I'm struggling to find, but it was matchstick theory. One of the things that I loved about that one is, the concept of a spoon and forks. If those are reusable, and when you're talking about energy and disability, that shit is reusable.
It's
So I use
finite. That is deep.
I
That's
use
true.
that match and I burn it, and you know what? It's gone, and it might torch my fingers, but I get to decide what I'm using my Van matches on. You don't.
So
Did I
I
start the
actually,
fire?
yes. So I
Yeah,
actually don't use spoon theory on the daily. I actually use spell slots
I love that one too. Yeah.
because there are some things that are level 1 spell slots and there are some things that are level 5 spell slots. And I get I get a number of level 1 spell slots, right?
Okay,
For
I
those of
have
you who
no
play
idea
D&D,
what are what squats?
Spell
spell,
slot.
as in for magic, spell slots. So, okay, in games
Ah.
like D&D, you get a larger number of spell slots for lower level, easier magic, and then for your higher level, you get many fewer. So, like, there are some things that are a level 1 or level 2 spell slot. They're easy. I can do them. I can do a number of these things. So like, I can take a shower. That's easy for me. I can make my bed. That's easy for me. I can feed the cats. That's easy for me. Then I was doing laundry or going to the post office. These are like my level 5, 6 spell slots. I can do one of these things. I cannot do both of these in a and now can I feed the cats with my level 5 spell slot? Yes. Can I go to the post office with my level 1 spell slot? Absolutely not.
Right.
It is not going to happen. So that kind of allows for more on the differentiation between difficulty of tasks. And it's kind of the same as spoons, but it's also different because spoons, you're counting spoons instead of number of tasks you can do in a day. And I'm kind of a number of tasks I can do in a day person, amount of energy in a day kind of person.
Yeah.
Right.
Same. I don't think I do it by that, but I think my functioning is just so variable that I don't have like because there are different things I can do to gain, I guess, a spell slot, but like how much of a spell slot I gain back isn't clear until I've ended it.
Yes.
Don't tell anyone we're autistics using metaphors. We're not allowed.
I
We
mean,
can take our cards away.
I would almost say that's sarcastic, but you obviously
Right.
don't know that either.
I know.
I don't know sarcasm. I'm autistic.
oh,
And I'm definitely not funny. We have no sense of humor.
Never.
no, we just don't think things that aren't funny need a laugh.
I know, that's my favorite bad research paper.
I don't know where that
All right,
music
y'all know.
is.
Give a little context. People may not know.
Okay, so somebody did some research at one point about how they compared humor. So it was comparing laughter in autistic people and people with Down syndrome. And they did this by showing autistic kids and kids with Down syndrome allegedly funny videos in which it wasn't just like something funny, but it was like something embarrassing funny happened. And then watching the laughter. And I believe they also showed them something actually funny. Full disclosure, I don't think embarrassing funny is funny. I'm like, oh, secondhand. I'm uncomfortable when I watch that.
Yeah,
And
Right.
exactly.
the kids with Down syndrome social laugh, in addition to sincere laugh. The autistic kids only sincere laugh. And okay, so things to know about laughter. People can tell if it's a sincere laugh or a social laugh, like a laughing to match everybody else laugh. People prefer real laughs. The conclusion of this study was, so we need to teach autistic kids to social laugh, to fake a laugh, and pretend something's funny, even though it's not.
It's good that they are being true to themselves, and since they don't think this is funny, they're not laughing. We need to teach them to be more fake. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like so.
Ugh.
All about
And
not
we need to
do
teach
unfunny things. What we just don't do unfunny things except laughter.
The part of it that like just flays me is that it's not even like people prefer or even enjoy a fake laugh.
But they're just accustomed to
kind
it.
of laughing autistic people are doing is genuinely superior, and yes. So yeah, that's my favorite
about
bad
the fact
autism
that
study.
maybe we as a society shouldn't think that you should socially laugh at someone being embarrassed or harmed. You know what I mean? But no, we have to we need to be fixed, not them. And don't forget about the one, I know you talk about this one sometimes, where they were saying that there's something was wrong with us because of us being too altruistic, not wanting to do things that will, So do you want to talk about that one too?
Yeah. Oh, you can talk about that one.
Okay, sure. So y'all correct me if I get this wrong. They did research and it determined that autistic people will not typically in the study would not do things that violated our ethics, even for personal gain, like, to found a bunch of money or something like that. So even if it was, so we would rather, we would rather have less of something or do without than lie for gain. And so they found that was wrong. That's something that's wrong with us. We're not ambitious enough because the typical person is going to do what is in their own best interest as opposed to what is the ethical thing to do. So we were deficient because of that.
I mean, that goes along with the fact that research has thought that for years being unethical like that was like a human norm. It was only when they started studying other cultures that are not as colonized that they found that there was more altruism and more acceptance of like basic human decency in other cultures. And it's like, yeah, no, y'all have just been wrong about like what human nature is.
Like y'all are just kind of bad at being people. And it wasn't there also a study where like autistic people would give the same answer or to, I think it was an ethical conundrum whether they were being observed or not, or is that the same one?
I think that's the same one.
No, I think that's a different one. Actually, I'm not sure, but either way, it still shows that they're like, like pathologizing something that should be a good trait.
We're morally consistent, and somehow that's a problem.
Yes.
Like
although to tie that back to the active supremacy that we were talking about, we also have to remember that some people's ethics we don't agree with.
Yes. Right. Yeah, some people's ethics we don't agree with, but that's not what. But at least we know they're morally consistent. So if they're saying it to our face, they're definitely acting on it behind their backs, and we can call them jerk. Well, with impunity.
Yeah.
And that's why it's
Yes.
I
frightening for
think
them to want to train us not to do that, because you know what I mean?
they want to train us into deceit. Call a spade a shovel, please.
But I definitely swore because I read Remy's thing that definitely had very many curse words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As is the point of Remy's writing, it's pointless.
Yes. And a lot of my writing does too, but I'm capable of not.
Oh my goodness. I think we're winding down.
Right.
It sounds like we're
I think
winding
we are.
down.
Probably, yeah. I think so.
So, is there anything else we need to talk about before we hang up?
Morenike, do you have anything coming that you want to promote?
Not promoting my stuff until after it's done. So, but I do want to. I do want to share this though. I wonder if, although there's no, source that's perfect, but I wonder if maybe we could close with kind of sharing a few places that might be helpful for people who want to kind of dig into, kind of some information about like, the history or kind of understand some key moments. Like, cause we don't know, everyone's grabbing a little bit of this on TikTok, a little bit of this on IG, a little bit of this wherever they found from whatever. And we don't know who they, like we talked about in the first, that some people have no idea who Mel Bags was, or they don't know who Anita Cameron is, or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, so I'm wondering if maybe that we could, even if there are things that we feel, still could use some work or maybe aren't as inclusive as they should be, if we could just kind of, suggest a few resources for people to kind of do a little more digging themselves.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and suggest Autistic Archive. That's sites.google.com/view/autistic-archive/home. And that has timeline, it has books, it has people. Not everyone is on there, but it is a really good place to start. And it has other websites so you can find other things that came before and do some reading there.
Am I allowed to, promote something I've been working on?
Yes.
Totally.
Yeah, I'm almost done, but by the time this is out, I will be on chaoscares.com. I'm building a symptom and doctor and medication and like everything, disability, all of the tracker thing that you need. And it'll even have like the ability to type in your doctor's office, and then it's going to have the buttons where you can click and go straight to your portal, or click and it'll dial the doctor for you on your phone.
Cool. I am doing no things.
I want to share. So if, again, for anyone who knows about this, sorry, but I don't know what y'all know and don't know. So I'm going to share it, that there is an open access book that came out. When did this book come out? Was it 2016? I'm trying to remember when it was.
Is it Stephen Cap's one? Because I think that was 2018.
Yeah, maybe it's 2020. Yeah, sorry. It's was edited by Stephen Cap, who's autistic, and it has, primarily autistic authors, although there's a few people who are allistic in there. And it's called Autistic Community and the Neurodiversity Movement: Stories from the Frontline. And so it's, there is a hard copy book, but the book is free. The entire book is available online, but there's also individual chapters. They're also free and available online. And so people can,
Cool.
review those. And if they're interested in looking into that, just going to list a couple of the names of a couple of chapters once I get to the right page. I think it's just helpful because it's got, it talks about Jim Sinclair's Don't Mourn for Us. It talks about like the independent living movement and, some of the, how, it talks about autistics.org. So some of these things you'll also see in the Autistic Archive. It talks about some of the, the different, like the development of the Aspire Network, a lot of the work, the self-advocacy work into what we talked about, this transition between DSM-4 and 5. It talks about Autism Speaks. It talks about the first Autism and Race anthology, like protesting, the genocide clock, just a lot of different, some of the autism or autistic gatherings like Otscape. So it's just, it's a way for people to kind of just look into, what things that have been important in our movement, because it's, it's a fairly young movement, but it's 30 something years. I mean, it's like, it's not old, and it's still growing.
And I also want to do one other thing because it's not on the archive and it doesn't sound like it's going to be on there. Back in I want to say it was the late aughts, or maybe early 2010s, The Society for Disability Studies journal did a whole journal on neurodiversity, and it has some of the earliest like academic writing on the movement. Disability Studies Quarterly, and you can look it up, DSQ Neurodiversity, and it should come up yeah, the first link does. And so you can go and look at that whole journal to see some early academic writing around the movement.
And to pull it out of academic stuff, because although, I'm a nerd, I also realize that's not everybody's thing. I really love, I talked about Anita Cameron, who is, been involved, who's autistic as well as blind, queer, a number of things, Black, et cetera. But is basically creating an initiative called We Were There Too. And so it's going to be like narrative storytelling, imagery, things like that, highlighting. It's not solely autistic people, it's like a lot of Black disabled activists in general. But of course, being that Anita is multiply disabled, including autistic, there's some of that as well. But it talks about a lot of really cool things. And, with, so it's another project that's unfolding. It's actually it's funded by Borealis Philanthropy, and Autistic Women and Non-Binary Network is the fiscal partner to support the program. So that's another one. It kind of talks about why some of us are left out of the movement, why why our voices are not, included. It shares the stories of different activists and some images and things like that. So it's worth checking out. The website is wewerethere2.org.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening. I hope you enjoyed, and we will come back and do this all again later.
We're supposed to end with some kind of saying about how it's like herding cats when we get together or whatever. I can't remember how we're supposed to do it.
I don't want to do that.
I don't know, but I actually need to go herd my cats.
Okay. Well, she like that.
You got me this time. So I'll say goodbye for everybody. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening to Herding Cats. If you like what you hear, please like and subscribe. It really helps us grow our community with your help.